I'm tired of pretending that I know how to spell presents. Every time I said the word presents in my notes, and when I looked it up on Letterboxd, I had to autocorrect it before I could do that, and to even find it in Letterboxd, I was spelling it so wrong that it wasn't popping up. By the nature of this review, I need to do full spoilers on the entire movie. I'm going to first explain the plot breakdown, and then I'm going to explain my feelings about the movie, and specifically why it's not a horror, and more of my personal, I don't know actually how I feel still. It's like really confusing and complicated, but I'm gonna talk about it. And I don't like to just hate on a movie, and I'm not gonna do that in this one. I feel like I'm really hard on horror movies because I've seen so many and I'm just really hard on them, but this was a really uniquely weird experience I had. This movie is about a ghost, and it's this actually really interesting thing where you're in the point of view of the ghost, and there's this smooth and liminal airy camera work where you are in all these crazy angles as a spirit viewing a dysfunctional family, and you're viewing this very mundane slice of life, hidden camera kind of. You're seeing a family who has really interesting, for lack of a better word, issues. Every family has issues, am I right? My family made me a international criminal, but that is for another video. So obviously there's this ghost in the movie, and the only person who notices the ghost at first is the daughter, and she had two of her best friends pass away. One of them she was closer with than the other one, but they both passed away from drug abuse. So she's already in this really emotional space, and she's sensitive to this ghost. So she obviously brings it up to her family. They think she's a bit crazy at first, like they don't believe her, and she's getting gaslit. The mother is played by Lucy Liu, who is incredible in this. She's very much a boy mom, for lack of a better word. She shows obvious bias towards her son, and she's like almost romantic the way that they have the relationship. She's like so intensely, it's like all of her feelings that she would have towards two kids she has towards one child, and that's her son. And it's this really weird, interesting thing to watch on the screen. I was like fully invested in what was going to happen just because it was weird. The son is not into this dynamic, it's just the mom, but it's just really strange. She's so emotional, she's like obviously going through something. And the daughter is like sort of a regular introverted teenage girl, and the father is one of the best TV dads I've ever seen. He's so supportive and understanding, and he eventually believes the daughter first. It made me so emotional, this dynamic, just to see like a really healthy dad figure who like is trying to work on himself and who is accepting of his kids in a way that's really refreshing. Just fantastic to watch because it was emotional and it was sweet. The son is like an athlete type, and he's like a popular kid type, but he's not the most popular. He like kind of wants to be, and he's hanging out with like the popular kids, whatever. But he's really quite a bully, and you don't feel like you hate him though. It's like you feel like he's just figuring himself out, and he's just going through something. Not as much as his sister is going through something, but he's definitely going through his identity, figuring that out, and you really cannot blame him. Like, I feel like everyone's high school version of themselves is genuinely the scariest thing to think about or to like look back at. I don't blame him. I don't blame him, and I don't hate him. You know, even though he does some horrible things, like he genuinely bullies someone really bad. So that's the baseline, and I just have to say it was extremely, extremely riveting to watch these people interact. If you're the type of person who likes to see interpersonal drama up close, maybe if you liked White Lotus, you will really like to watch this. It's kind of the things that people say behind closed doors, and that is riveting to me. I know it's not for everybody, especially because as the ghost, you can literally see like what is happening every single second. So you're seeing these people, and like when they're reacting with their families and when they're like suffering alone, you see it all. And I was at no point bored. Like, no point of this movie was a bored, and I cannot say that. The director was an executive producer on We Need to Talk About Kevin, and that movie has some really riveting family dynamics and like dysfunctionality going on. That is the exact same vibe as this movie. Not as intense, but like the same interesting vibe as the issues in We Need to Talk About Kevin. Just like this subconscious like tension and this passive aggression and aggression, everything. There was also a lot of really incredible details with the family, just like things on the counter, and they didn't cook a lot, so they were always either eating takeout or they had takeout nearby, and they also were eating on their own plates, like not the takeout plates. So you can tell they were kind of like a higher up middle class family, and they were a little bit wealthier, so they were getting the nice takeout and eating on the nice plates. That was a really interesting detail, and I noticed that. The mom's alcoholism also means that she never notices that her kids are stealing from the bar cart. Another detail that I really liked, just made it really realistic. They genuinely felt like a real family. So what ends up happening in like the actual movie is that the brother becomes friends with the quote unquote most popular guy in school, like that's literally what they say. The sister and that kid form a romantic relationship. It's kind of in secret, so they don't really want the brother to know because that would kind of fuck up their friendship, and they're all in high school and they're all just really immature. The entire climax of the movie happens in the last 15 minutes of the movie. There's a lot of stress and turmoil and fighting and resentment, but the last part of the movie is where the actual climax is. The popular guy who's kind of dating the sister ends up being the corniest, cringiest psychopath you've ever seen. Like genuinely, I cannot stress this enough. He's cornball psychopath. He's evil in the most annoying way he could possibly be evil. So one night when the parents are gone for work, he comes up with this master plan that you get to see as the ghost, but the brother and sister don't know about. He's drugging the sister's drinks with some kind of cocktail of drugs, and he basically roofies the brother so that he can do whatever he wants with that sister and leave the brother downstairs drugged, right? Me saying that sounds way scarier than the movie actually makes it look, because this guy is so incredibly corny, and even the way he's dressed is so annoying, and he thinks that he's so smart, and I don't know if that was self-aware or not. So when she's drugged, he kind of starts to torture her, like psychologically, like he's telling her that he actually killed her friends and that he's like a god and he's so powerful, and it's like there's this thin veil between life and death and he's in control, and he's using like saran wrap to kind of torture her. It sounds way more disturbing me saying it than the movie, because the movie is not scary. I genuinely swear to you, his dialogue is so cringy and corny that any scariness of the movie just disappears. It is the most uncomfortable thing to not only watch him like say corny stuff to the sister when they're being romantic, but then like him being evil. It was borderline unwatchable for me, and I don't know if that was on purpose. I genuinely don't know, because it might have been trying to paint him in the light of pathetic, which it is, but I feel like audiences don't need that much hand-holding and seeing that he's pathetic. I feel like, I don't know. I just didn't love his character, I guess. I didn't love the dialogue. I thought it was so unwatchable almost. Anyways, the ghost literally flickers the fuck out of the lights downstairs, so the brother wakes up. Like the ghost is like waking the brother up with its paranormal powers, and it sometimes does that, like it will do that once in a while, and it just goes really hard at trying to wake this brother up. It's the most active the ghost is, and you're seeing it because you're the ghost. And the brother wakes up, he immediately starts yelling for his sister, and he runs up and saves his sister. But while he does that is he tackles this popular guy, and they both fall out the window and die because they're on like the 3rd floor. So that is the end of the movie basically. But the last 5 minutes, maybe less of the movie, there's like a time skip probably in a year in the future when they're moving out of the house and the brother is obviously dead and they're all grieving, right? And the grieving mother, Lucy Liu, she looks into this old mirror in the house that ends up being like the focal point of the whole movie. The whole time is like this really old, over 100-year-old mirror. And she looks into the mirror straight on. And it's the first time the camera is straight on the mirror, because it's usually from the side. And you see the brother in the back. So Lucy Liu is looking into this mirror and the brother is in the back, and the brother was the ghost the whole time. And when that plot comes together, first of all, I did not ever think that was what was happening. Not once did I predict that. But when that plot twist comes in, that you were seeing through the eyes of the dead brother who was kind of lost in time, so many of the lines and the foreshadowing and everything just clicks into place, and the entire movie just makes so much more sense. I can also not underestimate how intense and eerie this final scene with Lucy Liu is. Like, just her scream and her grief is genuinely scary, and it was the scariest part of the entire movie. I was not freaked out or weirded out or eerie, whatever, until this scene with Lucy Liu. She just breaks down, and it's so haunting. I think it was, if there was some of that injected into the rest of the movie, it would have been so much better, but I'll talk about that in a second. So that's the movie. That's the whole movie. And when I walked out of there, I was very angry and mad, and I was genuinely so disappointed because I've been looking forward to this movie for probably 4 months. I've been watching the trailers and I've been following the marketing, and I was just really disappointed. Why was I offended so badly? Like, I was actually triggered, and I was thinking about it, and the movie wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad movie. It was corny at times, but it wasn't bad. And I was thinking about why am I so mad? I think it's because I felt tricked and I felt manipulated as a horror enjoyer. You know, I just felt really mad because I felt tricked. Like, I literally got tricked. I think it's because the marketing of this movie was in a completely different ballpark than the actual movie, and I think this was not cool. And I think if you've seen the trailers, the trailer makes it seem like Neon is bringing the big guns in a ghost story, which has not really been done by Neon, and Neon is notorious for making extremely disturbing, scary movies. I think that they make the scariest movies right now, and they were marketing it as like Hereditary, and I'm like so pumped for that, and it ended up being just a psychological thriller with very little anything, like very little scare. And I don't want to say it's manipulative, but it does feel like that. And I think a lot of people aren't aware, but horror fans are the best return on investment for studios. We are almost 20% more likely to go to the movies multiple times per month. Us as horror fans not only go to blockbuster movies, but we go to indie releases. And I think just with the success of horror lately, because horror fans are willing to spend their very limited budget, because everyone's budget's limited, willing to spend their very limited budget on seeing a movie in the theaters because we think it's important to experience it in all the senses you could. So now studios have realized, like, if they market it as the scariest movie ever, like, people are gonna show up. When I watched the movie, I was like, this does not match with the marketing. And I felt tricked, first of all, but then also I was thinking, like, is this gonna happen again to me where the trailer says it's really scary and it ends up being a drama? But this movie is deeply sad, and like, regardless of what I think about being tricked, I have to say I was very much affected by the movie, and as much as I didn't want to admit it when I walked out of the theater. This director does a lot of action movies that have little to no gore or scares in them, so it makes sense that it's not scary. And I should have known that from the start, like I should have done my own research. But the reason I'm making this video is because I feel like if no one else tells you this, I should be the one to tell you this, because I would want to know that Presence is in no way a horror movie. It's at most like a psychological thriller at the absolute max. But I found myself very emotionally triggered by the movie. And when I came home, I was really overwhelmed and I was like upset, and I'm like wondering what the fuck is going on? Why am I so upset? And I've been just trying to figure out the last couple days why it affected me so much. And I think it has to do with what I think my analysis of the movie is and what I think it means. And it is weird because I'm usually completely fine with movies kind of talking and discussing things that I have had personal trauma and experience with. I usually am not affected. But for some reason, this movie really hit a point for me where I got really sad and upset. And I think it also has to do with the fact that I don't go watch sad movies in the theater. Like, I'm not used to it. So, as I said, this movie is very familial. It's very based around family. But the most important relationship in this is the brother and sister relationship. And I have a brother. And I also grew up in a situation where I had a lot of people I considered siblings. And you grow up together. And like everyone else who had a sibling, we were constantly fighting, like badly, like boxing each other, fighting, yelling, like stealing from each other. It's like a thing that you just do with your sibling, especially if you have a brother. And I honestly think you're weird if you didn't fight with your like sibling. I think that's really weird. That is your fighting partner for the rest of your life. And in this movie, the brother is an asshole to his sister, and the sister is a little not the best to her brother either, doesn't really give him a lot of like grace. As much as the entire movie they are fighting and they're having a really tense, complicated relationship, never for a second did I think that they hate each other or that they don't love each other. And I didn't realize that until I was thinking about the movie later. I didn't realize that I had this like baseline understanding, and that's what made it so hard to watch. And the brother's redemption arc of him jumping out the window, sacrificing himself, saving his sister, it did not seem surprising in the least. Like, you did not feel surprised that he did that. You knew that he would, and you were hoping that he would wake up because you know that he would do whatever to save her. But why the fuck would you think that? And like, the movie expects you to think that, but why? Why did you not doubt that? Like, you were worried that he wouldn't wake up. You weren't worried that he was gonna take his friend's side or he wasn't gonna save her. So why was that not a surprise to me? And it seemed like the movie knew it wouldn't be a surprise if the entire time they were fighting. I don't think you saw one happy moment with those two the whole movie. And I think that's the part that really got to me about this, is that there's this thing about siblings that you never really think about until kind of moments like this where you're forced to see it from an outside perspective. And it's that, like, you know someone on such a fundamental kind of primal human level that literally nothing they could do or say, in 99% of cases, like nothing they could do or say could shake that belief that they would save you and they would be on your side. And that's what I was feeling when I was watching this. And that might be not relatable, but I just want to say what I'm feeling. A sibling relationship is unlike any other relationship because you can't really push someone away when you know someone on that level. In this movie, nothing that they say to each other is going to push them away on a fundamental level. The fighting and the whatever is not going to make them any less close than they are by default. And why wouldn't they know each other? It's like when you grow up with someone, it's your entire life is intertwined with theirs. And I think a sibling is one of the very few chances you get to really see someone. I like that mirror being a focal point of the movie because I just felt this when I was thinking about it. I'm like, you don't know someone like you know a sibling, not even your spouse. It's like when you're reading a book from the protagonist's point of view, you fully empathize with whatever they're doing. And that's partially because you know them on such a deep level that you can see why they do the things they do. And with siblings, you've seen them grow up and you've seen their traumas and them trying and then failing. So when they make mistakes, you see them on such an empathetic level. It's really, really, really hard to shake that fundamental love and caring you have for each other. It's kind of the whole reason we're able to have anti-hero novels and anti-hero TV shows, whatever, because when you know someone and what their inner workings are like, it's extremely hard to villainize them. I know if you have like a beef situation with someone, and this is obviously not including if someone did something horrible to you, but if you have like drama with people, I genuinely think if you could see it from their point of view on such a deep level and you were able to see them in times when they were totally alone, you would feel less angry and you would understand more. And I think the combination of that phenomenon and also just having someone intertwined with your childhood in such a huge way makes a sibling relationship very, very, very unique and also hard to portray. And I think this movie is one of the only times I've seen that portrayed so well. I liked how in The Bear, it's this similar thing where that sibling relationship between Carmi and his brother is so tense and strained, but he loves him through all planes of existence. And it's like one of them is dead and he still feels him, like he feels that connection, even though they were fighting and he basically ruined his life. I think the stereotypical portrayal of siblings in like TV shows and when you're growing up, you see like a lot of sibling antics and stuff. I think that desensitizes us to how much that can actually affect you if you do have siblings. And we're used to it being kind of shallow and silly that when it gets it right, it's really intense, at least for me. Am I very angry that they marketed this movie completely wrong and kind of swept the rug out from under me? Yes. But can I give it props for being deeply tragic and like very affecting? Also yes. There was also not enough Julia Fox whatsoever. That part might be the worst part. It was so tragic in a way I've never really experienced before because I don't go to sad movies, like I genuinely don't. So this was new for me. So I am glad I went to see it, but I have qualms. But if you have a sibling, I think it's a worthwhile watch to kind of analyze how it's such a universal experience to hate and love your sibling in equal ways in such a deep and fundamental way. And just let it bring up some questions that you never really would have thought about. At least I just think personally, I never would have thought about this. There's something so interesting there about if we could know everyone in the way that we know the people we grow up with, how differently we would view the world and how much more grace we would give to the people that deserve it, and how not as much patience we would give to the people that really don't. Because you cannot hide from someone you grow up with. That's just facts. You cannot. Okay, that's my analysis and review. Thank you for watching and thanks for being here. Thank you for the people that have subscribed to me. Love you very much. I was playing around with this idea in my head that I might want to do this media of the week kind of thing where I do like a quick 10-minute video of what I've been watching and reading that week, because I read a lot of books and watch a lot of stuff and movies per week that maybe you don't just want to see me talk about on Letterboxd or whatever. Maybe you want a little bit of a breakdown. That would be kind of fun for me to do, but only if you're interested. Let me know, because if you're interested, I'd like to do that because I love to share a good book and a good movie. Like for example, last week I finished this book, Motel 6. I don't recommend it because I can't in good faith because it's disgusting, and I don't know what I was expecting when I went into it, but it's like this book about this dystopian kind of universe where you're allowed to do whatever you want with dead bodies. Like you can do whatever the fuck you want with them. So they've created these like hotels for people that are really like, you know where I'm going. But this guy's wife signs off to be in one of these hotels and he like goes looking for her. And it's the most disgusting, depraved, and really funny book I've ever read. I don't know if I recommend it because I don't love the story and I think it dragged a little bit, but there's some really fun and interesting world building going on in it that I think if you like that kind of stuff, it's worthwhile, just because I was charmed by the world building, like the gift shops and like there's almost like a Las Vegas vibe of the hotels. Like they're like trashy and stuff. And I think that's really fun. And weirdly, I think it would make a good mini series or like a movie, even though the content is really, really depraved. You could easily just not include it. Like you could not include the climax stuff and just go to like the desert, depraved kind of dystopian vibe of it where cultural norms have broken down to that point. That'd be so interesting. So that's just an example. I picked up another book today that I might want to talk about. I don't know yet. And I'm also trying to read an audiobook of Earthlings because I've heard really great things about that. And then lastly, I have this physical comic because I've been reading the boys comics. I'm obsessed with them. I never was a comic girl until this series. I just think it's so gory and dark and entertaining, so I really like it. This is volume 2 and I think there's like 12. So I actually read the first volume on the Internet Archive, which is a free website where you can go and actually read PDFs of books on your iPad or whatever, and it's free on there if you want to read the first volume, and if you like it, then you know. Okay, that's all I have today. Peace and love, and thank you for watching my video.